Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be talking about the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. Currently, these are the astrological locations of the moon's nodes. And so the effects of these nodes, the story of these nodes, which I'm about to go into, is what we are going to be noticing sort of spring up over the next couple years as the moon's nodes transit through these placements. So before we get started with this video, please subscribe, hit the like button, comment if you have any feedback or have any takeaways. I can't wait to read them. Always love to read what you guys think and any additional knowledge you have to contribute, since we're all learning together. So let's start out with talking about what the nodes are conceptually. The nodes conceptually get associated with this idea of karma or transformation. We have the South Node, which represents usually the past or something we're more familiar with. And then we have the North Node, which represents what we're unfamiliar with, what's going to maybe be more of a challenge for us, but is ultimately what we need to grow. So technically what the nodes are is this is when the sun's ecliptic path meets the moon's path. So in astrology, we perceive the sun as moving around the earth rather than the scientific way, which is the earth moving around the sun. So if the sun is moving around the earth, then the moon is moving around the earth. And wherever these two paths that the sun and moon take meet are considered the South Node and the North Node. Now, sort of tying the technical back to the conceptual, if we think about the sun, which is illumination, and we think about the moon as sort of the subconscious or the emotional, then the nodal points and the signs that they're in are exposing our subconscious, right? Because the moon is illuminating, or the sun is illuminating the moon. The sun and its process of illumination is illuminating the moon, which is the sort of more subconscious qualities. The moon is also associated with the soul, like our souls come through the moon to earth is something you hear a lot when discussing the nodes. So if we think about nodes as illumination or nodes as information to our deeper subconscious selves, then we can sort of use that to understand what the nodes are trying to tell us, right? They're telling us that these are deeply unconscious qualities that through our lifetime will be made conscious. And that brings me to what the South Node is about. The South Node is something very unconscious. It's the programming we receive as children. It's the way that we see the world. That North Node is helping to sort of illuminate all that programming and sort of gives us the choice to be free of it. So while the South Node is sort of what we've been doing all these years, the frameworks we've been living in, the North Node comes out and says, look, it's not all black. Here's a little bit of white. Here's a little bit of light. The North Node is what makes the black and white gray. The North Node is what adds color to this black and white photo we've been living in. And so the South Node sort of represents, I guess, the structure that we come into this life with. And the North Node is sort of the influence to that structure. It's what fills in that structure, or it's what colors that structure. So it's not that the South Node or the North Node is better than the other. It's just that they have different functions. And your South Node is a little bit more your survival instinct, your go-to way of doing things, your comfort zone, essentially. So let's start by talking about the South Node in Libra. So Libra is the sign associated with justice, humanitarianism, equality, and equity. So with the South Node in Libra, there's a tendency to let everybody else go first. There's a tendency to see other people and to judge other people also a lot on their similar ability to be submissive. So Libra South Nodes, I feel like, don't really love when someone takes up a lot of the spotlight, or perhaps there was someone in their life who took up a lot of the spotlight and they sort of judged that or criticized that. They come in with sort of a lot of judgment towards people who break the rules or sort of go against the grain, or, don't really have a sense of consideration for others. So these people are very considerate of others to the point almost where they're judging them. So it's like, while Libra can be just, it can also, being just also requires judgment, right? So what happens over time with a Libra South Node is that they've been judging and categorizing the world, and that includes themselves. And so then they find themselves possibly sort of in this trap of what's just or what's right and what's expected of them, what's expected of them to make the world a better place. They get very caught in this sort of inferiority complex where they feel as though they owe everyone something, but then they resent everyone for making them feel as though they owe that. And then they sort of push back, and there's this push and pull between the self and the other. There's this push and pull between judgment and compassion. There's this difficult space, and the South Node becomes difficult after a while. That's a quality of the South Node. So with this sort of Libran quality of letting everyone else go first, judging what's right from wrong, it sort of gives us these tensions in relationships, and we sort of begin to lack harmony in our relationships. The way that we were creating harmony in our relationships before doesn't really seem to be working, because perhaps we've been creating that harmony from a place of judgment. We've been saying, well, as long as you do things the way I expect you to, then I can be happy. And that's harmony to me. But then people are always going to fail us and create these expectations, right? So then what happens with the Aries North Node is the Aries North Node, sort of the shadow side of the Aries North Node, is this expectation of others, is this fight with others to get our way, because we feel as though we've been silent for long enough. We've taken everybody else's notions of who we need to be and what we need to do, and we start to get pissed, we start to get resentful, we start to outwardly either fight people or ignore people, or we even sabotage people, because we feel as though we've been trapped in their ideas of who we should be and what we should do. And so it sort of turns into this fight for authenticity, which is sort of that shift from the Libra into the Aries. So then if we talk about this Aries North Node, what's challenging Libra South Node people? The Aries North Node is asking you to become less codependent, more independent. A lot of Libra South Node people are sort of reliant on their circumstances or reliant on the world to be in a certain place to inform their mood and how they feel. And this is very Libra, which is very collective, versus Aries, which is fire. Fire is all about the you and the self. Fire is a lot more focused inwards. So this is a journey of somebody really going inwards and really also creating a mind frame that does not see conditions as contingent for their expression of compassion or love. It's like the Libra South Node would say, well, I can only give you love and compassion if you act this way. Versus an Aries North Node, the challenge is to say, I can be happy no matter what. But this depends on self-confidence. A lot of Libra South Node people have had experiences in their life that robbed them of their confidence. The thing about the Libra South Node, though, is that you came into this world viewing somehow confidence as dangerous, or viewing your own confidence as dangerous, viewing your own confidence as meaning, whoa, 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 if I get too confident, that means I'm too comfortable. That means something's going to go wrong. And then the minute something goes wrong, I'm going to jump into that Aries North Node and I'm going to fight back. So it's like, perhaps you've been walking on eggshells a lot of your life. You've been sort of trying to keep the peace, trying to protect the peace. And then you get resentful and bitter because you have been doing that all these years. And then you don't know how to have relationships because you've been maybe lying or conforming or hiding out. And so the Aries North Node really asks you to step into your own power, to not feel so guilty for doing what it is you want to do. Aries is honestly the sign of the self and self-awakening. So it's like you are really moving towards a space where you can do that and not be not fear what others are going to think or say. So the Aries North Node is there to challenge you to not fight for your relationships, but to rather build a strong enough armor in yourself that when those fights happen, they can't affect you as deeply. They can't affect your confidence as much. And to really inhabit that space of confidence and to really stay confident in who you are and what you're deciding for your life. Okay. So this balance of the Aries and the Libra, it's between what's just and what's right for everyone else and what's just and what's right for me. It's claiming our own sovereignty when everybody else is telling us to do this thing. And it's letting other people do their thing and owning that we must not fall for what they do. We have to stay focused on our own lane and do what feels right to us without judging or getting bitter towards others, but rather staying in our own lane and being actualized in the people that we want to be. So that is a little summary of the Aries and Libra nodes. Now we are going to get into the nodes through the houses. So let me take a quick drink of water and we'll start there. Okay. So North Node Aries in the first house. North Node Aries in the first house. You have likely throughout your life let your family have a lot of control over you with Libra in the seventh house. This is likely someone who's let, the community determine who it is and what they're going to do. You could have a strong attachment to what your family thinks. And so at the same time, you're trying to move away from that and start your own family to create your own fresh start. It can almost feel like from a young age, depending on what other planets you have in the first house, like you've been trapped in your body or you've been trapped in this family and you've been wanting to get out for a really long time, because the first house is about our family as well and is related to the seventh house in that way. So it's like you're learning to maybe start your own family, or you're learning to gain more confidence in the household. Okay, with a North Node in Aries in the second house, you are learning perhaps to not let people take advantage of you financially, to be stronger in your financial approach, to be stronger in your pragmatic approach. With South Node Libra in the eighth house, this is someone who might fall for like pyramid schemes or people trying to scam them out of their money, people who just give a lot away and then all of a sudden they're left with nothing. And so that Aries North Node might think that being rich or being, I don't know, being prosperous or successful is selfish, right? Because this axis is all about selfish and selflessness. So it's like the North Node in Aries might fear that if I make too much money, if I keep too much for myself, that's a selfish act. But then also every time I've been selfless, I've lost a lot and it's actually diminished my confidence. So if you have North Node in Aries in the third house, you could feel that this would mean that South Node Libra is in the ninth house. You could feel obliged to maybe take a particular route to your education. You could feel a little bit like maybe this is also a possibility, like maybe your parents wanted you to study law or something very specific within maybe a university or an established institution. But the Aries North Node in the third house like wants to do things a little bit more holistically, maybe wants to approach their education or their learning path with a lot more options, with a lot more variety, and wants to have maybe a little bit more of an alternative approach to life. And once again, that creates this guilt of selfishness. It's like, if I don't do it according to the way that like authority and these strong authority figures in my life have wanted me to do it, then I'm somehow failing them. And I often find with a lot of the nodes that move towards the southern end of the chart, like houses 1 through 6, there's often this real fear of going small or of disappearing or of like losing significance in some way, like losing a higher position. So there could be this fear of like, I'm relinquishing the possibility of a higher position by doing things in a little bit of a less conventional sense, you could say. All right, if you have the North Node in Aries in the fourth house and the South Node in Libra in the 10th house, then your work is sort of in the home. So with the Aries North Node in the fourth house, it's like you might sort of fight for your family to be a certain way, because maybe your family in the past has expected your family to be like, a certain way, a certain status. And so with the South Node and Libra there in the 10th house, it's like you feel like you owe the world some status, or your family itself should work to uphold this status. And then with Aries North Node in the 4th house, it's like having to accept that this was all programming for your family, allowing your family to be whoever they want to be. And once again, not relying on the family or the community to validate for you who you are or what to do, but rather just sort of learning yourself to be an individual in this particular realm. A lot of the Aries North Node placements are sort of about separation and individuation. So depending on the house where the Aries North Node is, it's like telling you this is the area where you need to individuate. This is seriously the area where you need to individuate and grow a little bit of your own roots. So in the home, in the family, you need to grow those roots for Aries North Node in the 4th. So for Aries North Node in the 5th house, you're really learning to individuate in the realm of creativity, creative expression. You with the South Node Libra in the 11th house might have gotten just very comfortable. I don't know, maybe doing things that were more for stability, maybe doing things that ranked you in a higher position. You might have been a person who throughout your life was like, I'm not an artist, I'm not a creative, like I could never do that, and maybe you've really enjoyed the works of other artists, but you've just never really felt worthy of trying that out yourself. So with the North Node in Aries in the 5th house, it's like you're trying those things out. You're getting in touch with your unique, creative, artistic voice. You might even, work or teach kids how to be creative or encourage them in their pursuits. Either way, a call towards the arts and towards sort of the sensory, visual, anything that sort of elicits inspiration, pleasure. The world of the physical senses is what the 5th house is about. So you might be called to sort of even be a chef, or just find a way to create, and not care so much about the group or what it means for keeping status in a group. Okay. So now if you have North Node Aries in the 6th house, South Node Libra in the 12th house, the North Node Aries in the 6th house shows that you need to really take agency when it comes to work, when it comes to your daily routines, when it comes to also taking care of your body. With Libra in the 12th house, it could have been like you relied on other people to give this to you, or you just really didn't try so much to take care of yourself at all. Like the 12th house is the house of self-sacrifice. So it's like you could just have sort of let other people make decisions for you. And the archetype of the 12th into the 6th is it's like these decisions that were made for you or that you sort of lazed out on sort of backfiring onto you. So it's like you were very naive in the 12th house with Libra there. Like you were very much just trusting of others, and then other people just did not live up to that trust that you invested in them, and it backfired in a way. And so this Aries North Node in the 6th is like this huge pushback towards the people that you once trusted, and it's saying, no, now I have to be the one to create my own opportunities because those people aren't trustworthy. So something you do have to look out for with this placement is like creating enemies, and not trying to completely will away your past or stay angry at people in the past, but rather take the lessons you've learned from it and transform it into maybe, an area where you work with Aries in the 6th house, or, using this to sort of find a way to serve people who could have found themselves in a similar situation. There's definitely a drive towards justice for people who are easily manipulated or taken advantage of in society. All right, so North Node Aries in the 7th house is showing somebody who really needs to individuate when it comes to the friend group. This is someone who's likely sort of subdued their personal self-expression, thought themselves not good enough to have a personal expression, but also could have just been really recluse and like not social at all. And this is because they fear that if I share my individuality with the crowd, no one's going to like me. So these people are learning to liberate their individual self-expression into the realm of friends, community. They're also learning to just really not take people's opinions so seriously. With Libra in the first house, it could feel like you're okay, guys. So now moving on to the North Node in Aries in the eighth house with the South Node in Libra in the second house. So this is a person who is learning to restructure their relationship with resources. With the South Node in Libra in the second house, there could have been an extra big focus on security for you and like securing your resources through doing the things you thought you needed to do to attain these resources. With the North Node in Aries in the eighth house, you are learning to ask for help. You're also learning to prioritize resources where you would like to see them. So this might mean spending a little bit more money on your passion and not reserving it for that rainy day, but rather using that rainy day fund to support what you actually love to do. And this doesn't have to just be finances. This can also be the reserve of energy, right? In the second house, we're always trying to reserve our energy and sort of contain it. In the eighth house, we're letting it go. In the eighth house, we're also exploring new ways to invest our energy through sex or through tantra or through, a spiritual practice. So with Aries North Node in the eighth house, you're learning to defend your right to pleasure, defend your right to spending, and to also realizing and understanding that energy has to keep in motion. Energy cannot just be contained and stay somewhere forever. Energy has to transform. Energy has to, multiply and keep going. And in the eighth house, that's what we're learning to do is we're learning to not stagnate our growth. We're learning to kind of let it take us, even if it takes us into dark places, which it always will by means of just the laws of expansion. You need that darkness to create, right, your vision in the world. Okay, guys, so moving on to the North Node in Aries in the ninth house with the South Node in Libra in the third house. So with the North Node in Aries in the ninth house, you might have felt like you were too stupid to contribute to conversations, or you might have this long history of keeping yourself silent, of just, letting other people speak before you, of letting others always be smarter and sort of doubting your own intellectual faculties. In the ninth house with Aries, you're learning to really lean into your intellectual faculties. You're learning to speak your mind and speak your truth and also look beyond facts, look beyond reason. In the ninth house, not only are we dealing with higher education, but we're dealing with philosophies of life and of the universe. So we could be just in this house taking a bit of a deeper dive into the questions we've never asked, into the realities we've held true. The North Node in Aries here is demanding deeper explanation, and then is there to teach that explanation, and also is learning how to not fear how other people are going to respond to them with their newfound knowledge or with their newfound power. So you really are in this house looking to cultivate and stand by your own personal power when it comes to the realms of information, knowledge, education, and life philosophy. Okay, with the North Node in Aries in the 10th house, that means you have a South Node in Libra in the 4th house. With Aries North Node in the 10th house, you could be getting over some limiting beliefs related to your career. You may have felt limited to the path that your family set up for you, or you might be very, very concerned with, doing the career that your family set out to do, or you may be expected to take care of the family with the South Node in Libra in the 4th house. Either way, you're learning to be a little bit more selfish when it comes to career and business opportunities. The interesting thing about Aries is unconventional, and Aries has to try a lot of different things out. Aries has to kind of, test the waters. It's Martian, right? So it has to kind of go through several fights and triumphs and tribulations to get to where it wants to be. So given that, the career area might be a struggle for you, but it's an area that you're highly driven towards. And keep in mind that the career you're doing is going to be opposite the one that your family expected of you. Is going to be one that you might have to create, that you might have to lead for. This is something that maybe hasn't been done, and you have the potential here to be recognized as an entrepreneur or a leader. But it does require you to really get in touch with, what has been denied to you in your household? What have you been putting off? What dream have you been putting off? What would it mean if you took the leap and just tried it out and took the risk, right? Okay. So with North Node Aries in the 11th house, this is someone who has Libra South Node in the 5th house. So with Libra South Node in the 5th house, it means that as a child, you accepted somebody else's direction, you accepted somebody else's rules. You were very, sort of maybe the child that was quiet and seen, but not heard. So you could have experienced an extra submissive childhood. Maybe you were somewhat of a prodigy. In the 5th house, it's about talent. It's also about children. So you could have just been a very talented child. With the North Node in the 11th house, this represents getting older, realizing reality, realizing we're not the center of the universe, and sort of positioning ourselves in a place where we see ourselves as a team player and less as sort of the center of attention. We also have believed for a long time that we have to stay a certain way to accumulate that attention. And by staying that way, we're actually giving into the expectations of others. We're not actually chasing what means something deeper to us. And the North Node being in the 11th house, what could mean something deeper to you is community, is humanitarianism, is kind of stepping outside of yourself or the world that has been created for you to exist as this one thing, and to go out there and to find out what other causes are out there, to find out what other interests are out there, and to really sort of become a conduit for the collective. When we're dealing with houses 11 and 12, we're dealing with sort of this idea of shifting out of sort of an ego self mindset into like an egoless sort of absorbent mindset where we sort of, it's not that we let other people dictate to us who we are, but we sort of turn over our own desires to a quote unquote higher power, or we could call this a just something that lies outside of our own psyche. And so with the North Node going into the 11th house here, it's like we're really having to learn how to stay open to the needs of others and realize that maybe by asking others what they need, we're actually stepping out of our cage of what was put on us and expected of us to be good children, to be high performing children. We now might be more concerned with helping others perform well and using our gifts and talents to energize and empower those who are around us. So with Aries North Node here, you are defending your right to explore, you're defending other people's rights, and you're moving into a more selfless place, which is interesting with Aries because you still have to take care of yourself and put forward that Aryan mindset of like, I come first and I have to, I have to figure out who I am before I can support everybody. But that's part of this is once you find out who you are, you find out that maybe you're not everything you thought you were. You were actually part of a much greater mechanism that now you're in a place to serve. Okay. Finally, if you have the North Node in Aries in the 12th house, that would be the South Node in Libra in the 6th house. This is going to mean that you have likely not had a lot of downtime in your life. You've had a lot of, you're also perhaps rather hesitant to slowing down, and the 12th house forces everything to slow down. So you might be trying to kind of run away from something with Aries in the 12th house. Related to the 6th house where the South Node is, you could be trying to run away from responsibilities. You could be trying to run away from just the world and reality because the 12th house is sort of an escapist place. And this shows somebody who might have trouble taking accountability for their own independence, taking accountability for their own sort of mistakes. They'd rather sort of hide out and not have to face them. And this is because with Libra in the 6th house, maybe there was a judgment inflicted upon them for doing the wrong thing, or they judged others and they cast out others. And so now they're all alone. And so with Aries in the 12th house, you are sort of having to stop in your tracks for a little bit and reflect deeply on your avoidance strategies. The 12th house also rules the elimination of self, and Aries is all about the self. So this is a person who, whenever fire's in the 12th house, it's like that fire has some water on it, it has some dampening on it. So it's like we are learning sort of in a way to not use our flames as a way of escape, but as a way of empowerment, both for ourselves and for the people around us. So in the 12th house, it's like you're coming in there to sort of temper the fire so that other people can gather around it. Because the 12th house is also about welcoming in the support of everyone and of the universe. And with Aries there, it's like you realize that you cannot be a self-sufficient leader without the support of this giant universe you're part of. And so spending time in isolation, spending time slowing down, not, making work your everything, carving out plenty of time to daydream and to imagine, invites in the openness and the space for you to collaborate. And here, in sort of this grand sea that the 12th house rules, you understand and become more of a conduit for a more collective function. So you realize that self-empowerment is what you've been looking for. You just may have been looking for it in the wrong ways. The 12th house sort of redirects us to, global trends, to the collective unconscious. And until we sort of step out of our own shell in the 12th house, can we see that we're part of that? Otherwise, the 12th house feels like isolation. It feels like disconnection. But when we can sort of look up outside of it, it's a scary thing to do, but it's ultimately the elevation of our consciousness and awareness of other people. So that is going to be my video on the Aries Libra nodes through the houses. I hope you guys enjoyed. Right now, our world is experiencing the North Node in Aries, the South Node in Libra. And to understand how that's going to affect you, check what houses Aries and Libra are in your chart to get a sense of what area of your life these nodal transits are affecting. In sort of the grand scheme of the world right now, we are seeing a lot of tension between justice and war, peace and war, right? With Libra in the South Node, we're realizing that our old strategies for creating peace are no longer working and leaving many people disenfranchised and many people upset. So Aries steps in to achieve a deeper and newer, a fresh idea for social change and for resistance. But Aries also rules violence. So we are also seeing an uprising in violence, in, hate and terrorism. And once again, as we've talked about throughout this video, Aries is having to learn sort of also to not let the box of Libra be what it's fighting against. In other words, Libra, if we're people pleasing, if we're doing what everybody tells us to do, we're going to develop some resentment that's going to lead us into violence. But if we can work on sort of the lighter side of Aries, which is to work on our relationship to self, do our own inner work, then we have the power to more peacefully show up for conflict. So not only is this a time of finding ways to fight back, it's finding ways to fight back peacefully. And it's finding out where there's a war going on within ourselves, what we need to make peace with there so that we can spread peace to each other. So guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you next time on this channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.